Poilievre, and then back to the minister.
Did you discuss this matter with any member of the Prime Minister's office prior to bringing it to Cabinet?
Madam Minister.
So I was given a recommendation by the public service. I accepted the recommendation. I asked many questions. Many questions have been posed, and I accepted the recommendation, and I brought it forward to Cabinet.
Did you discuss it with Katie Telford before bringing it to Cabinet?
I personally did not discuss it with Katie Telford.
Anyone else in the Prime Minister's office?
I personally did not have those conversations. I was working with the public service. The professional, nonpartisan public service made a recommendation. I accepted it.
So you did not discuss this with anyone in the Prime Minister's office prior to introducing it to Cabinet?
I did not have conversations with the Prime Minister's office in regards to the proposal that was being recommended by the public service.
Did you discuss it with anyone in the Finance Minister's office?
I personally did not have those conversations with the Finance Minister's office.
Did anyone in your office talk to
Mr. Poilievre, the minister, give the minister a little opportunity. Go ahead, Madam Minister. Madam Minister?
I answered the question, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Did anyone in your office speak to anyone in the Prime Minister's office about this proposal before it was introduced in Cabinet?
I know that it's a substantial amount that was budgeted, so I would hope that all offices would have been having conversations to ensure that the program was delivered in a meaningful and successful way.
So that's a yes, your office did discuss this with the Prime Minister's office prior to introducing it in Cabinet.
Mr. Chair, the member can choose to put words in my mouth. What I am stating is that we had a proposal and we wanted to move forward on a plan for students and not-for-profits to be able to deliver during this very challenging time. A recommendation was made by the public service. I acknowledge that many conversations take place, and I would hope that those conversations would take place.
Right. So that I take that as a yes. You did speak. Your office did speak to the Prime Minister's office about this prior to you're presenting it to Cabinet. The government website.
Mr. Poilievre, I hate to interrupt, but I think the minister said that isn't exactly what she said.
Okay, so I'll just ask her. I'll ask her then, yes or no, did your office discuss this matter with the PMO before you introduced it in Cabinet? Yes or no? If you can't answer, I can move on to another question.
Another question, Mr. Poilievre.
Okay, so she does not want to answer that question.
We'll
follow that. We'll follow that trail then. All right. Next issue is the government website says this was a $900 million project. What was the total number of job placements that the $900 million was guaranteed to create?
Mr. Chair, as I stated in my opening statements, the $19.5 million that was allocated, given to WE, was for the initial 20,000 placements. There was an additional $10.5 million for the supplemental cohort. If the program had proceeded, there would have been an additional $13.53 million. So the total amount that We Charity could have received through the contribution agreement that was negotiated by the public service and We Charity was $43.53 million. The majority of the $912 million that was allocated for the program was for grants so that students would have the supports they need for post-secondary education costs.
So you originally the government claimed that we could only get 19 million. Now you're saying 43 million. So which is it?
So as I stated publicly, Mr. Chair, it was that we would be allocated or given $19.5 million for the initial 20,000 placements. And of that $19.5 million, $5 million was for not-for-profits so that they would have the supports and ability to create placements. $300,000 was for accessibility support
that
so
wasn't
that all
the question.
students would be able to.
You said that the maximum amount we could get was $43 million. Originally, your government claimed we was only going to get $19 million. So you've got two different numbers you're working with. And then there's the third number, which is $900 million. That was the total scope of the program for which we was the sole sourced administrator. You said now that amount of money, $900 million, was to create 20,000 positions. But 20,000 positions times $5,000 per position. We can do the math right here, Mr. Chair.
And we find that comes to you were substantially over time. I'll let you finish your point, and then I'll let the minister give the explanation here in full.
20,000 20,000 positions at $5,000 maximum per position brings us to $100 million. Where does the other $800 million go?
Madam Minister, if you can give a fairly substantive answer here.
Mr. Chair, I actually reject the explanation of the member. Obviously, the member is not listening to what I am saying. When I came out publicly, I stated that $19.5 million was going to We Charities for the initial cohort of 20,000 placements. And of that $19.5 million, $5 million would be for not-for-profits so that they had the support necessary and be able to create these volunteer placements given the COVID-19 context, and $300 million was for accessibility support so that all Canadians, regardless of ability, could participate. I'm sharing today that an additional $10.5 million was provided to We Charity to administer a supplemental cohort so that smaller and local not-for-profits could participate, because there was a demand after the announcement was made. We received an influx of desire and demand for the program, so we want to make sure that they too had opportunities. I'm sharing that the contribution agreement also includes, for the second cohort,